So just this past week, the Louisiana governor signed a law that every classroom has to display the 10 Commandments. And this is for every public school in the state of Louisiana. Now, if this is your first time hearing that, what do you think about that so far? And if you've already heard about it, what are some of the things that you've been hearing so far? In today's video, I want to give you my opinion on this and hopefully give you some insight and perspective for how to work through these kinds of political or current events. Okay, so I first want to start on just the purely kind of political side, and then I really want to give my answer as a Christian. On the purely political side, I'm a little bit mixed because I do understand that we have separation of church and state here in America, but what that actually means is not as simple as you might think. A lot of people want to think that it just simply means, well, we can never have any kind of mixture of church and state. Other people will tell you, and I think this is a little bit more accurate, it's that the government can't interfere with church. It's actually a little bit more the other direction, right? So it's not so much that church can't interfere with government, it's a little bit more the other direction if you read some of the founding documents of our country. And so just in short, what I mean by that, it is that in the beginning, some of these early laws were put in place to protect religious groups. It was put in place to make sure that the government couldn't interfere with religious groups, and also that different religious groups would have freedoms. And so I think one of the earliest cases had to do with some early Baptists, actually, who were entering into the country, and they feared that they would be persecuted by the majority religious groups of the time. And so I believe it was Jefferson who was concerned with that, and he made it clear at the time as president that they would be safe under this idea of separation of church and state. I'm no historian, and so if I have any of that wrong, feel free to correct me, give me some more insight below, but maybe you learned something a little bit different in school, or you were given a different kind of impression. But I just want you to know, just from my research, that it's actually not so simple, this topic of the separation of church and state. At least not as simple as maybe the media or certain groups want to tell us it is. So all that to say, my opinion, at least on the political side, I'm a bit mixed, because I do think Louisiana has the freedom to vote for such things. If, as a people of Louisiana, the majority agrees that this is what we want in our public schools, I think they should have the freedom to do that. Now, I am a little bit concerned, I'm a little bit worried on just the political side of what this will do, because if this passes in Louisiana, things tend to escalate with other groups. They're going to want to pass their own, kind of counter laws, and this could get quite messy quite quickly. My last word on the political side is I have no idea who the Louisiana governor really is. I don't know their motivations. Just from a couple things I read so far, I'm not sure that they are actually most devout Christians, and this is really what their intentions are. I'm not quite certain. They may be doing this with ulterior motives, or maybe not. Maybe they really do have some really pure intentions here, and this is what they see as a really, really good thing. Now, coming over to my opinions as a Christian, I'm a little bit mixed here too, and so I hope that's not a cop-out, that I'm mixed on both sides. At least I will tell you that I'm mixed more in favor of this law, and here's why. Overall, I do believe that God can use all things together for the good of his kingdom, the good of his people. And so something like this that is so polarizing, where I'm sure you've read a lot of stuff so far, you've maybe seen a lot of different reactions or videos or TikToks, Instagram, Reels, and so on about this, it really starts up a discussion, right? Just as when the abortion law changed some months ago, a lot of discussion happened at that time, and a lot of discussion has been happening since that time. I think something similar is going to happen with this. And so talking about the content of the 10 Commandments, that's actually kind of exciting to me. I saw one person who's totally against it talking about the merit of the 10 Commandments, and his argument was that, well, these are overly religious laws, but he did still have to talk about each of the other laws where, like, well, these are not religious actually, like do not murder and do not lie, do not bear false witness, don't steal, these kinds of things. He had to talk about that and discuss it. And so it's putting the 10 Commandments right in front of people where they have to examine them. They have to look at their own morality, their own character, And I actually think that's a pretty exciting thing. Now, if you have some worry about this being brainwashing and it being unfair that, the secular public are having to look at these 10 commandments and however else these 10 commandments are going to be used or implemented in these public classrooms, I would just ask you this. When you look at the content that you're already currently learning in school, if you're a student, or what you've already learned, the things that your teachers have said or taught you, a lot of that has been extremely biased, often against religion, often against Christianity, often in favor of that teacher's personal agenda and views. And so my point is, we're always receiving someone's bias. We're always getting somebody's perspective, a very skewed version of reality. And so if we're really worried about brainwashing and kind of putting a point of view in front of somebody that doesn't agree with Christianity, I would say overall this doesn't hurt, because they are already exposed every single day to one person or a handful of people's very narrow perspective and very skewed perspective on things. In the state of Louisiana, and so interestingly, in the state of Louisiana, this is going to be a decision that, maybe atheist parents or whomever have to make, where they're going to make a decision whether or not they want to send their children to public schools and maybe do homeschooling instead, or private schools or charter schools. And that's actually the decision that many Christians here where I live in the Bay Area have to make all the time. Quite a few families send their children to private schools, private Christian schools, because of the content that is being taught in the public schools. One really side extra point I want to make really quick is that I read somebody's response, and they said this law is terrible because, well, we're going to have to explain what adultery is to a bunch of children, meaning that children are going to be exposed to the idea that somebody could cheat on their spouse and have relations with somebody else that is not their spouse. The ironic thing is that, well, our children are already being exposed to sexual in nature things in their education. They're learning from a very young age that there's all kinds of families, and there's mommies who also have a spouse who's a mommy, so 2 mommies and 2 daddies, and it can be whatever gender we want. All these things, at least in my state of California, are already being taught, and the children are already exposed to these ideas. And so to be concerned with children learning about adultery, which is actually a very morally terrible thing, I think most people would agree with that, even if you're not a Christian. And we're so concerned with children learning this when there's already this happening. And so it is very ironic that people are having that kind of response. And so what do you think? This is obviously a very hot button issue. I would totally understand if you don't agree with my opinion, and that's okay. I'm kind of mixed, but I'm a little bit more in favor than I am against because of some of the upside that I see with this. But yeah, I'll leave it off to you. Well, what do you think? And so go ahead and leave a comment down below with your opinion. I'd love to respond to you down there. Keep it civil and let's have a good discussion. Before you do that, I would actually challenge you to pray. Would you stop and pray, maybe read some scripture, have a nice conversation before we just kind of have like knee-jerk reactions? That's something as Christians we really don't want to do. Let's really think these things through clearly, through the lens of the scripture and prayerfully. So that's it for today. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope this was interesting. If it was, go ahead and leave a like down below, leave a comment, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. That's it for today. God bless you. Love you. Peace.